Good morning, everyone. I am Julie Landi, and I am very excited to welcome you to our Vision Talk series. My name is Julie Landi, and I'm the founder of Live Your Vision and the founder of this series, although I've had some inspirational minds behind it. So, this series is a series of conversations, practical, inspirational talks to be able to help women who consider themselves adventurous, faith-filled souls longing for a new chapter. And let me tell you, I have met many of them. So welcome, good morning, and I'm thrilled to have you. I see you guys coming on. So please go ahead and say hi in the chat, maybe where you're coming from. That always helps me to know that I'm talking to a live audience. And the comments are delayed a little bit, so I may or may not answer them until you get till we finish. But by all means, please put any questions or thoughts in the chat. I will be sure to answer those for you. So today I have the distinct privilege of sharing some recent thoughts, I would say, about the women that I've been working with and really what's helping them. Hello, good morning, Nika from Alaska. I see it coming in now. So thank you so much for putting that in the chat. That helps me to know you're there. I like being with you. And, this series is part of just the growth of, hello, Marissa Bell. It's part of the growth of an idea that I had, and actually a part of the longing for my own next chapter. And so it's really exciting to see things come to reality. And that's really what we're here to help you do, is help your thoughts, your ideas, your faith become reality. And so welcome, welcome, welcome. This is part of that series and part of the services that we offer. This one, of course, is for all of you to enjoy. This will be a very short, relatively short time together. Good morning, Renee. So good to see you. We're really covering the gamut here from Alaska to Idaho to Boston to Baltimore, and I love it. Good morning, Helen. So good to see you. And today I'm going to be talking to you about a topic that honestly comes up a lot. Really, women that come to me not sure what they want, and they are dying to really change what's going on inside of them. But honestly, they're coming to me from a place of really lacking motivation. Now, historically, these women are not slackers, okay? They're not lazy. They're not, good morning, Patricia. They're not, misdirected or just kind of trying to get by on with what life offers. These women that are coming to me telling me that they actually are lacking in motivation are typically those that are serving so many others. And they are longing to create a great next chapter for themselves, but they never get around to it for themselves, right? So I'm thrilled to be able to share that we are watching women every single week move from longing to have a new chapter to living their new chapter. And that's what's really exciting, is that it actually can be done. And sometimes those things can feel so ethereal, like, how do I get there? Where do I start? I don't even know where to begin. And is it even possible? So we're so caught up in so many questions. But like I said, the women that are typically coming to me are not the women that are trying to slide by in life. They are very driven women who have been serving so many others, and yet they are in need of some support themselves. In fact, they are drained by serving so many others. So it's actually what brings me to my topic today. I'm going to get right into it. These women that have often also, what we've discovered, is overlooked a source of tap motivation that they actually have within them. So they often miss out on a personal fuel source that they have access to at any given moment. And that to me is a great waste. I don't know about you guys, but what do you think when you have, like, you actually found out later you actually had what you needed, whether it was a great idea or money in the bank or the energy or whatever, and you just overlooked it, or you found something that you overlooked that you really, really needed. It's always like those light bulb moments that come on. Well, I'm here to tell you today, you have what you need tucked deep inside of you to create that great next chapter. But the difference is that our motivation is what's really going to tap into that. So let me talk a little more about that specifically. Good morning from Maine to Nashville. I'm super excited. Our drive and our motivation is often below the surface, right? So it's not always that simple or easy to tap into. However, our motivation, as we know, is the lifeblood of our daily activities. It's how we spend our days, what we do with our days, the energy we exert for our days is largely determined by the motivation that we are able to tap into our own inner drive. Now, I would like to put before you that not only is it necessary to find an adequate supply of motivation, but the quality of our motivation counts. Okay, so a couple of thoughts I want you to start to think about. Not only do we need an adequate supply, but we need to have the right kind of motivation. So two separate thoughts. I want you to start to think about those. And we often overlook these. We go through life without giving it much thought, usually, driven by the demands that are put on us. I know this is not new, this message to many of you. Driven by the demands of life, that ends up being what our motivation becomes, right? The demands, the externals, so crazy, right? So as a result of that, we often are not internally motivated, but externally motivated, extrinsically motivated, right? So, and we overlook it. So really, let's think about it. Have you ever given much thought to what actually really is driving everything from you brushing your teeth to serving your children, to learning a new skill, to taking a leap of faith, to starting something brand new, like writing a book or starting a new career or going on a date with a new guy? Have you ever really thought about the motivation? Now, I want you to think about the motivation for a second, and I want you to think, is it fear driven, like, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss out? Or is it because you have so much to offer? Really think about that. Whatever it is, whether it's brushing your teeth, going on a date, starting a new business, I want you to think about for a moment, just slow everything down and think about what it is that drives you. What is the motivating factor? Now, often we float through without giving it much thought. That's the truth, to why we're even doing what we're doing. And I know many women, when I stop and actually ask them why they're doing what they're doing, they will tell me it's their kids or their family. Pretty noble thoughts, right? That is what they're motivated by. That's why they're doing what they're doing, is for their family. And I do put before you that is, although that is a very noble part of motivation, I have been helping women long enough and have seen that sustainable motivation is deeper than that. So although family and children are incredibly motivating, sustainable motivation is deeper than that. This may sound blasphemous, I know, to some of us who have found, great joy in raising our families and maybe even wanted that all our lives. But I really wanted to, again, put before you the idea that it's a little deeper even than that. So I want you to inviting you to go a little bit deeper than that. Because the women that I've worked with over the last, 25 or so years, but more specifically the last 6 years, when it's only about their families, when it's only about their children, they end up feeling at some point, waking up one day going, gosh, is that it? And almost feeling guilty because their family wasn't enough. And I am here to alleviate your guilt, because most of us are motivated by things that are deeper than that. That is a portion of it, but there's more to it. And the women that have totally focused on their family for decades wake up invariably going, wait a minute, why am I depressed? Why do I feel this hole, this vacuum? And of course, we know it's when the children often get older and don't need us as much, it becomes revealed. But there's more to it than that. So stay with me here, okay? And when there's a depression or a hole or a burnout that's coming, it's often that there's something deeper that we need to look at. So let me put this before you again. Life takes on much greater richness when we understand ourselves well enough to become fully aware and conscious of why we are doing what we do. I'm going to repeat that because it's worth it. Life takes on much greater richness and, I'll add, effectiveness when we understand ourselves well enough to be fully aware and conscious of why we are doing what we do. Now, I realize that's easier said than done. Simply, it's difficult somehow to determine what our deepest motivations are without the help of someone else drawing them out and really brainstorming and, co-creating with you. I get that. I understand that. That is one of the many things that we do here at Live Your Vision. We really help extract your deep why, your belief, your driving motivation, because whether you realize it or not, you're going to use it. Now, whether you use it for good or you use it in your own destruction or self-sabotage or to the benefit of others, but to the drain of yourself, that's another story. That's for another day. Or you can call us and we can do some more deeper dive examination with you for that. But the truth is you are driven by something, but the wisdom will teach us to identify what that is, to bring it to the forefront, to bring it to more awareness, where you'll get more access to the power that is within that. So I understand that for today, we're not going to dig into your stories, but I do have a little test for you. Today, we can do a simple test to determine motivation, really based on your emotional state, okay? Which is probably easier in truth to determine than our deeper motivations right now. So go with me for a second, if you will. What is your prevalent, and I say, not the highs, not the lows, but what would you say is your resting emotional state? Okay? Is it more burnout, depression, anxiety, frustration, irritability? Where do you find yourself more often in life these days? In your emotional state. What is your resting emotional state these days? Irritability, frustration, impatience, borderline burnout. Where do you find yourself? Or let me just say this. These are typically the byproducts of a life that has been motivated by guilt, by responsibility, by shoulds, by living in response to others, by really survival mode. And I know there are times when it's absolutely necessary. I get it. After, going through many griefs myself, I understand there's times that we just gut it out. We call it, my husband and I call it nubs. Like, you're just down to the nubs. You're just doing what's right because you have to. And I get it. But you cannot live in that state for a long period of time or there will be consequences physically, emotionally, spiritually. Obviously, I think you probably all know that. So if there's a resting state for you that's been for a long period of time, I dare say the motivation needs work. Okay. The other opportunity or the other option I see women living in is this emotional state, a resting emotional state. I would say this is where they regularly return back to. They might have highs, they might have lows, but they regularly return to. I appreciate you guys putting out there. Yes, put out that emotional state. Where is your regular resting emotional state? That's a really good indicator we're going to tap into of your motivation, okay? I appreciate you guys putting it in there. Thank you, Stephanie. So now the other side of the coin, of course, is if your regular resting emotional state is one of joy, is one of optimism, is one of faith, is one of excitement to get out of bed every day, really, or most days, we'll say, not every day. We're not looking for perfect. We're looking for the resting, the average, the general place of where we live our life, right? The space with which we live our lives. But is it one of more empowerment and confidence? Right. Exactly. Think about where you naturally return to in your resting emotional state. Okay. These states I want to put before you have a lot to do with what the internal motor engine voice is saying to you, right? If you're always like, you got to do more, you're not enough, this is not enough, somebody's waiting, they need this, they need that. If that's what's coming up from within, then honestly, you're going to find yourself in a state of frustration or burnout or worn out for sure. Now, if you're coming up from what's coming up from within is like, you know what? I know who I am. I know what I've got. I can't wait to bring it to this world. You're going to find yourself in a state of joy, empowerment, and confidence more often than not. So that's why we've got to do the digging deeper. Yep. And I appreciate you guys saying some of you guys have done a lot of the work here. And so you may have found yourself in a regular state of irritability and anxiety or depression. Some of you have moved out of that state because you've learned how to tap into your motivation on command. That is possible. And it is so, let's just say it's a sweeter place to live. Okay. One motivation clearly is reactive. The other is proactive. So it's not just a quality of life thing. It actually has a lot to do with the results that we find in our life, right? So one is about making powerful choices and reaping the benefits of good decision making, while the other is about continually dealing with the hand that you're dealt with responding to the consequences of life. Right. Again, of course, to access the sustainable, confident, joy-filled state on command, you've got to get clear on what your own gifts are, your own strengths are, and what you believe. Those deeper things. Again, we're going to a deeper, deeper place. If you're tapping into it, even those of you that have done the work and find yourself most of the time living in a state of joy, confidence, strength-based living, like giving to others, when your motivation is waning, I want you to think about, whoa, have I lost touch with what I believe and my strengths? Because it's very easy to forget about these things. We don't walk around with a sign on our head, right? It's easy to forget about these things. So you get to tap into the benefits or return to the benefits of those if you're conscious of it. And yes, I appreciate what Renee is saying. We're going to talk about that in just a second. Of course, that sustainable, joy-filled living is able to be accessed. And of course, the benefits that go along with that. If you've taken the time to assess these, then you will, by default, live in a much more proactive, faithful, success-driven, believe it or not driven, but success-oriented, joy, wins, victories, gratitude space, right? If you've not taken the time or given yourself the permission to do this internal work, you will by default live a life that is the proverbial rat race, right? More women than I know live, as Renee just put in the chat, unconsciously. Now, these are amazing women that I love and admire, loaded with talent and opportunity and potential, but they're just living in an unconscious state, just reactive to what's come their way. So as a result, they overlook and undervalue who God has created them to be, which always breaks my heart, and leading to a depleted state, right? So I want to ask you today, whether you've done the work or you have not yet done the work, to first and foremost give yourself permission to think about how to tap into your God-given strengths, access what you believe, and discover where this deeper motivation can come from so that you can live in a space that is confident, joy-filled, moving forward, regardless of your age, regardless of what's happened to you, regardless of what is coming your way, even when resistance and obstacles come your way, and they're never going to stop. Every one of you has been given a unique set of gifts and strengths. Living from them means you live from what you've been given, not from what you have not. That automatically shifts you from a place of scarcity to a place of abundance, to a place of coming from being full from a place of being empty and drained, right? So these little shifts are really quite amazing. So taking the time to determine and develop these things, you will find an unending source of motivation, one you can tap into for years and years and years to come, because you know where it comes from. You know how to access it. Therein lies the difficulty with many people. Ignore this and you'll continually find yourself worn out, burned out, and bummed out. That's how it goes. And it doesn't change, and you'll come back to this same spot. So yes, the quality of life is really hanging on this, but ironically, it's not just quality of life we're talking about here. It's really the difference between achieving our goals and not, okay? Even the crazy thing is, even when we achieve our goals and they're coming through a motivation that's guilt-driven, that's out of responsibility, we still often feel a hollowness or an emptiness, even when we achieve our goals, but with the wrong motivation. Here's a thought, right? Think about that for a second. Even when we achieve our goals, but it's for the wrong reasons, out of guilt, out of drain, giving up, like burning ourselves out to do it, we often find the victory at the end of the day to be hollow. Isn't that just a horrible thought? Ooh, what a waste. On the flip side, what I've found is when women have tapped into their deeper motivation and they're living from their gifts, they're just giving out of what they have, this deep well of abundance that they've discovered for themselves, even when they don't get what they're looking for, there is still a harvest of satisfaction and fulfillment, regardless of the outcome. Hear what I said, you guys? Even when we don't get the victory, but if it's coming from the right motivation with the deep sense of overflow and gifting, we get the prize. We get a gift. We get that feeling of satisfaction, right? So now just imagine with me for a moment how much more you would offer your gifts if in fact you found satisfaction in doing just that, which of course uplevels your chance of achieving the result you're looking for as well, right? Think about this for a second. Success, much of the time, is a result of not giving up. Whatever it is you're looking for, whether it's a weight loss goal, a new business, a new chapter, a new love, a new continent, whatever it is, success, much of the time, is a result of not giving up. Really, we see that. Winners, that old saying, winners never quit and quitters never win. It's true. You know that to be true. There are really no overnight successes. So understanding that success much of the time is a result of not giving up, then I want you to think about when the process is as enjoyable as the prize becomes much more likely. And oh, so much more sweet. That's right. When the process is as enjoyable as the prize, or more so even, then the success, the prize actually becomes so much more likely and oh, so much more sweet. It's double win, right? Seeing all the growth in both myself and the team and the clients I get to work with has been so extraordinary because there's joy in growth. There's joy in the process, and it's not as outcome heavy, although I will say the outcomes are pretty significant. So it's so fun to watch them shift from trying to get things done to being able to see how they're growing day in and day out. It's so beautiful. Yes, recognizing the wins, Dana. That's so, so true. So seeing all the growth in myself and the students really has come down to them being willing to do the inner work, to become students of themselves, as many of you know, you've heard me say it before, and not judges, right? To let go of the guilt, the shame, the inner critic, really to let it go, to give yourself permission to live in the grace. That's really what we're talking about. For them to be willing to do the inner work that produces new external realities, day in and day out, day in and day out, and it does. For them to become gift-driven means to come from a place of abundance, means that their cup is full, means that they overflow into their life, means that they come from a place of confidence in who they are, what they want, and fueled by what they have and not what they don't. So I really want you to leave this thought with you. It's going to be a short one today. I just really wanted to provoke some thoughts about your deeper motivation and ongoingly checking your motivation, not just once and one and done, ongoingly. Is it guilt-driven or is it gift-driven? Because one will produce a spirit of abundance and sustainable motivation, where the other will tap you out and dry you up. So we can use those emotional resting states to determine where we're at. Yes, I know there's some physical parts of it, so you need to be aware of that. But I will say that the women I've watched shift these inner pieces and start living from their gifts really have a whole different experience of life. And I think that's why a lot of us are here in this group. We call it the Reinvent Your Life group for a reason. We're hoping to have a whole different experience of life. And that's why we came here. So life is very different when it's gift driven. I hope you will examine your own thoughts, if nothing else, and start to think about that. Start to think about how can I shift those. Examine your own emotional state, right? We're here if you need us, of course, and we are about to fill our next mastermind. We have a few spots left. If anyone's looking to really do the deep digging inner work with us, go ahead and set up your own complimentary vision session with me and see if it's a right fit for you. But at the very least, if you're feeling that continual burnout and obligation, responsibility, and just weight of the world, start to think, wow, what are my gifts? Wow, how can I tap into them? Wow, what do I believe? And I'm not talking about in a spiritual sense, but really, what do I believe about the way the world works and the way I'm supposed to fit into it? Now, in order to figure out your destiny, you may have to get clearer about your design. So if you need some help, again, we are here. We have these opportunities for women all the time, but we're going to close out our mastermind enrollment here coming up in the next, 30 days. So if you're interested, grab your spot, at least for a vision session. Promise we'll help you dig down a little deeper, even in that. And I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us, because my hope is that you will start living from your gifts. You're very wealthy women, every single one of you. You have resources that are beyond measure that you can tap into. Whether you feel it or not right now is a matter of being able to access it. But whether I know you personally or not yet, I know you're a wealthy woman with tons to give. And I know that your vision is the answer to someone else's prayer. So thank you for joining us. To your gifts, may you all be driven by what you have and not what you're not. Thank you again for joining us, and have a great day.